Good afternoon, Dr.
Yes.
Klosa-Kuchelhaus.
Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. I don't know if you remember, but we have already met 3 or 4 years ago in Mannheim. So I'm very glad to have been assigned as the role of discussant for your presentation. Actually, I do often use the Neologism dictionary developed by IDS, especially because it offers extensive encyclopedic information which I can use as a teaching resource when I teach about culture. Today, again, I have learned a lot from your presentation, not only about the IDS Neologism dictionary, but also about the German neologisms related to the COVID-19 pandemic specifically. Now, there are a few points about which I would like to hear more from you. First, the IDS Neologism dictionary that I was using was not a crowdsourced dictionary. So I was wondering about when you started allowing users to participate in the making of the dictionary and what advantages this change had brought about, or instead, what sorts of issues it has raised. Secondly, you presented the example of the 3G, which stands for the third generation of cellular technology, and which has assumed a new meaning in German in the context of the pandemic, as it refers to the 3 anti-preventive situations to avoid, which we can roughly translate in English as enclosed space with no ventilation, big gathering of people in close proximity, and close contact with people within 1 meter. In this case, we could say that the meaning of the neologisms almost fully overlap. But of course, this is not always the case. A cross-cultural study of such neologisms seems to me an interesting research topic, and I would like to know what you think about that. Finally, you mentioned that you have come up with 2 types of entries for your neologism dictionary. That is, the concise entry and the comprehensive entry. This seems to be an effective method that could be applied in Korean neologisms research too. I was wondering if this method was used because the COVID-19 neologisms in particular required it, or instead, if it was a more general decision that was relevant for the entire neologism dictionary. As a final remark, I would like to highlight that your presentation was a mirror image of your dictionary project, that is novel and dynamic. Thank you.
Okay, so we already shared his comment through the email also to you. So do you have any comment on that?
Yes, you can all hear me again, I hope.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So the first question was, since when do we allow users to participate in the making of the dictionary, and does that have advantages or maybe also disadvantages? In fact, we started to invite users to present their ideas on which words to include into the dictionary before we started the work on the corona pandemic a couple of years before, and users have already used that online form for a couple of years. but not very often, let me tell you. It picked up a lot when we had a lot of press articles on our work on the Corona word list. Whenever people heard something on the radio about the word list or read something in the newspapers, we could see that our online form for suggestion of new words was used more often than before. We always had a peak in the week after one of those publications. Sometimes we had 20 or 30 or even more entries in the form in a couple of days, and then it would be more quiet again. I think that we really have profited from doing this because we have had very many very good suggestions for inclusions into the dictionary, or people use the form to give some feedback to us regarding some already existing entries. They would mention that they know of other uses in Austria or Switzerland, for example, and this helped us to make the dictionary entries better. Of course, it's also some work because you have to answer all those mails. We try to answer them on the same day. So we have set up a system of surveillance of all the things that go on in the form. But I think overall we have profited immensely by this. And there are in fact some people who have become sort of our dictionary friends outside who present now ideas on other new words to include outside from the Corona context, only because we kind of talked to them and they learned about our work, and so now they are our regular customers. Let's put it that way. And I feel that we have profited from this. Okay, the second question was the 3G example. Yes, and that's a good example for that, for the fact that some things are done differently in different countries. And then the question arises, how do we deal with that if we think about a multilingual dictionary or even a bilingual one? How do we explain those differences? Is it translatable, and questions like that? I find that a very interesting topic, and I know that lots of colleagues around the world have the same thought, that a multilingual dictionary here would be very interesting for cross-cultural studies, for example. And also a question that we might deal with is how strongly all the other languages besides English have been influenced by English, for example, in establishing specific terms in the Corona pandemic. We haven't started on working on that question yet, out of two reasons. First of all, we are still working on the Corona list. It's still going strong. There are about 500 candidates left that we haven't been doing anything on yet. And actually, we're still collecting new words every week. New ones come up because the situation is still developing and going on. Right now, we are talking about the fourth wave here in Germany and new restrictions coming up pretty soon. And so I guess new words will be established again as well. And the other reason why we haven't started on that work is that we are supposed to be working on the German language. We are the Institute for the German Language, so we are usually not doing anything comparative between languages. But in this case, we might make an exception and try at least to share our data with colleagues around the world who might be interested to work on that, comparing to their own languages. Okay, and then the third question was, we have come up with two types of entries. We have concise ones and then comprehensive ones. And it was said that this seems to be an effective method that could be applied in Corona neologism research too. I mean, that's a question that the Korean colleagues should probably answer. But in fact, we didn't start this method because of the COVID pandemic, but we also started that way before. We have started to publish a list of words that we still monitor a couple of months, or I think in 2019, we started to publish that list. So these are words that we were already sort of watching. We had already noticed there is this neologism, but we weren't sure yet whether it'll survive and whether we would include it into the dictionary on the long run. But because I felt that dictionary users will probably want some information on those new words at the time that they emerge, we had already started to give some concise information on them, and the format looks exactly like the format that we are using for the Corona neologisms. We also started to publish concise entries on words that we already know are neologisms according to our definition, but where we felt that not the whole amount of information would be necessary, because they are just not as interesting when it comes to cultural aspects, for example, as other words, but they are still worthy of being included in the dictionary. So we sort of scaled down the entries that we usually use. So at the moment, we have 3 different types of entries. We have the very, very long and comprehensive ones. Then we have a middle version where we give the most interesting facts on many new words. And then we have those for all the words that we still monitor. And the Corona neologisms are in fact also words that we still monitor, because we don't know how they will develop. And I hope that I've shown with the examples given why this might be the case. Yeah, and that's, I guess, my answer, or these are my answers to the questions. And now I'd be happy to share some more thoughts with people being with us now.